Hello! I would be very pleased if you would like the video. Subscribe so you don't miss new videos every day that will help you relax. I'm also curious where you are listening to me from and what time it is now. Write it in the comments. Enjoy watching. The sun rose over Athens, painting the city's white marble with a warm golden hue. The streets were alive with the quiet stirrings of morning, as citizens prepared to begin their daily routines. Merchants swept the floors of their small shops, arranging baskets of olives, jars of honey, and fragrant herbs, while the aroma of freshly baked bread drifted from the bakeries, mingling with the salty breeze from the nearby Aegean Sea. In a modest home near the agora, young Nicandros stretched awake, rubbing the sleep from his eyes. His mother, Irene, had already begun the morning's chores, drawing water from the communal well, lighting the hearth, and preparing a simple breakfast of barley bread and figs. Nicandros, like many Athenian boys of his age, was expected to learn both the practical arts of life and the virtues of citizenship. Today, he would walk with his father, Themistocles, through the bustling marketplace, observing the city's pulse while discussing matters of commerce and politics. Athens was not just a city, it was a living, breathing organism, constantly moving between the practicalities of daily life and the lofty ideals of democracy and philosophy. Citizens gathered in the agora to exchange news, debate policies, or simply watch the flow of life around them. Women, though largely confined to the domestic sphere, played crucial roles in maintaining the household, educating the young, and participating in religious ceremonies, offering flowers and libations to the gods in the quiet sanctuaries scattered across the city. As Nicandros and his father entered the agora, the scene unfolded like a living tapestry. Merchants called out their wares, from colorful textiles imported from distant lands to the delicate pottery crafted by skilled artisans. Philosophers strolled among the crowd, speaking of virtue, justice, and the nature of the universe, their words carrying on the wind like whispers of a higher truth. Citizens paused to listen, debate, or challenge, for in Athens, dialogue was as sacred as the olive tree. The Acropolis, towering above the city, gleamed in the morning light. The Parthenon, dedicated to Athena, the city's patron goddess, stood as a testament to Athenian ingenuity and devotion. Carpenters, stonemasons, and sculptors worked tirelessly, their hands shaping marble and wood into forms that would inspire generations. Nicandros watched a group of young boys playing in the shadow of the sacred hill, their laughter mingling with the distant sound of hammers and chisels. In the heart of the city, the rhythm of work, play, and worship intertwined seamlessly. By midday, the sun was high, and the streets of Athens were filled with the scent of cooking fires and the laughter of children. Irene, now back from tending to the household's errands, prepared a meal for the family, lentils cooked with herbs, olives, and bread, accompanied by watered wine for the adults. The family ate together, sharing stories of the day and offering thanks to the gods for their blessings. Meals were simple but nourishing, reflecting both the Athenian love of moderation and the abundance of the fertile Attic lands. Education was central to life in Athens, and Nicandros' afternoon was devoted to learning. Under the guidance of a respected teacher, he practiced reading and writing, recited passages from Homer, and listened to lessons in arithmetic and music. Education was not merely a path to knowledge but a means to cultivate virtue, preparing young citizens to participate actively in civic life. The stories of heroes and gods, woven into every lesson, reminded the youth that courage, wisdom, and piety were as essential as skill in trade or arms. Evening brought a different rhythm. Citizens gathered in small symposiums, discussing politics, philosophy, or art while reclining on couches with cups of wine. Poets recited verses, and musicians plucked lyres, their melodies drifting through candlelit courtyards. Religion, too, marked the end of the day. Families offered small prayers to Athena, Apollo, or household gods, asking for protection and prosperity. Festivals and public rituals punctuated the calendar, blending the sacred and the social, reminding every Athenian of their place in the cosmos and in the community. As night fell, the city quieted. The wind carried whispers of the sea, rustled olive trees, and hinted at secrets shared between gods and mortals. Nicandros lay in bed, listening to the distant murmur of the agora as torches flickered and shadows danced on the walls. Dreams of heroic deeds, philosophical debates, and the beauty of the Parthenon filled his imagination. Tomorrow, Athens would rise again, full of life, debate, and devotion. A city forever striving toward greatness in the shadow of its gods and the guidance of its people. In the streets and temples, in the workshops and homes, in the laughter of children and the whispers of philosophers, Athens thrived. It was a city where everyday life was intertwined with art, politics, religion, and knowledge. Here, the ordinary became extraordinary simply because it existed in harmony with ideals of beauty, justice, and civic virtue. Each day, each small act of labor, learning, or devotion contributed to a society that, even now, echoes through the corridors of history. Athens in the Golden Age of Pericles was more than stone and marble, more than the victories and debates that would fill the annals of time. It was the quiet rhythm of daily life, the mother drawing water at dawn, the merchant arranging his goods, the boy learning the stories of heroes, the philosopher speaking of virtue, that formed the soul of the city. Through these whispers of ordinary existence, Athens revealed its true greatness, a society in which every life, no matter how humble, was connected to the larger tapestry of democracy, culture, and devotion that defined the age. And so, as the city slept beneath a sky bright with stars, the whispers of Athens continued, soft but unbroken, carrying forward the legacy of a people who believed that even in the simplest moments, the divine and the extraordinary could be found. As the sun climbed higher, the agora became even busier. Merchants called out their goods. Jars of fragrant olive oil, hand-woven cloth dyed in deep reds and blues, and baskets of fresh figs and grapes. Buyers haggled energetically, exchanging coins and stories, while children darted between stalls, laughing and chasing one another through the crowded lanes. Nearby, skilled artisans demonstrated their craft. A potter shaped clay on a spinning wheel, fingers wet and nimble, creating amphorae for wine and oil. A sculptor chiseled marble into the likeness of a god, sweat glistening on his brow. Each piece, whether functional or decorative, carried the pride of the maker and the spirit of Athens itself. Women visited the market with baskets balanced on their heads, selecting ingredients for their families. Some stopped to exchange news, discussing the latest festival preparations or the performances of traveling poets. Though public life was dominated by men, women's presence in daily commerce was vital, ensuring households thrived and rituals were properly observed. Religion infused the city like air. Temples dedicated to Athena, Apollo, and other gods were scattered across Athens, each humming with quiet devotion. Citizens brought offerings, olives, honey, small figurines, or libations. Priests and priestesses guided them, chanting prayers and instructing them in proper rituals. Festivals brought these practices into larger, communal celebrations. During the festival of Parthenon, the streets overflowed with music, processions, and athletic contests. Young men competed in foot races and wrestling, their bodies glistening in the sun, while choirs sang hymns in honor of Athena. Citizens cheered, waving olive branches and recounting tales of the goddess's protection over the city. Even in moments of labor, conversation and reflection thrived. Philosophers wandered marketplaces, debating virtue, governance, and the nature of happiness. Children listened, wide-eyed, while adults paused between tasks, considering the weight of their words. In Athens, learning and dialogue were not confined to schools but lived in every corner of civic life. As twilight approached, the city shifted from work to leisure. Courtyards filled with the soft strumming of lyres, families gathered to share food, and neighbors exchanged stories of the day. The scent of roasting fish and herbs filled the streets, mingling with the cooler evening air. Light from oil lamps flickered on walls, casting dancing shadows over mosaic floors. The night sky over Athens shimmered with stars, and the Parthenon glowed softly in the moonlight. Families retired, children whispered their prayers, and watchmen patrolled the streets. The city's rhythm slowed, but the heartbeat of life continued, a quiet testament to the enduring spirit of its citizens and the wisdom of their gods. Through markets, temples, festivals, and simple domestic routines, Athens thrived. Each day, every small act of work, devotion, or learning contributed to the city's identity. Even in ordinary moments, the city's grandeur and ideals, democracy, beauty, and piety, were palpable, carried forward in the whispers of everyday life. Education in Athens was more than learning, it was a preparation for life. Young Nicandros spent afternoons under the guidance of his teacher, practicing reading and writing. He memorized passages from Homer, learning tales of gods and heroes, and discovered that stories carried lessons of courage, wisdom, and moral virtue. Arithmetic and music were equally important. Nicandros practiced the lyre, his fingers pressing strings with care. Music taught harmony, patience, and discipline, while arithmetic sharpened the mind for practical affairs. Every lesson prepared boys for their future roles as citizens, capable of thought and action. At home, family life balanced learning and devotion. Irene managed the household, teaching Nicandros and his siblings to cook, weave, and honor the gods. Meals were moments of reflection, where stories were shared and gratitude was offered. Children learned to respect elders and understand their place in the community. Evenings often brought the citizens together in the agora or private courtyards. Philosophers and statesmen discussed politics, justice, and civic duties, sometimes drawing crowds of listeners. Debates were lively yet respectful. Ideas flowed freely, for in Athens, dialogue was a civic duty as well as an art. Music and poetry filled the night. Lyres were plucked, voices recited verses, and families listened in candlelit courtyards. These moments combined pleasure with education, teaching both aesthetics and ethics. Every note, every word, reinforced the values of balance and refinement that defined Athenian culture. Religion remained woven through daily life. Families offered prayers before meals, lit small lamps in honor of household gods, or visited temples. Festivals punctuated the calendar, bringing public expression to private devotion. Parthenon and Dionysian festivals reminded citizens of their connection to the divine and each other. As the city rested under the moon, conversations lingered in the streets. Watchmen patrolled quiet alleys, merchants closed their stalls, and scholars continued their studies by lamplight. The city's energy never ceased entirely. Even in sleep, Athens dreamed of art, learning, and civic harmony. Through education, music, family devotion, and debate, Athenians cultivated both the mind and the soul. Every small act, learning a verse, tuning a lyre, sharing a meal, or speaking in the agora, was part of the living rhythm of the city. Life itself became a continuous practice of virtue and beauty. In the workshops of Athens, artisans worked with skill and pride. Blacksmiths hammered bronze into weapons and tools, while potters shaped clay into amphorae for oil and wine. Every item was crafted with care, reflecting both practicality and the city's aesthetic ideals. Work was not merely labor, it was an expression of culture and identity. Athletic training was a vital part of Athenian life. Young men exercised in the palaestra, practicing wrestling, running, and discus. The body was honored as a temple of the soul, and physical excellence was a reflection of discipline, courage, and civic responsibility. Victories in local contests brought pride to families in the city alike. Religious festivals filled the streets with color and music. During Parthenon, citizens marched in processions carrying olive branches, while priests led offerings to Athena. Choral songs echoed through temples and courtyards. These celebrations strengthened civic unity, blending devotion to the gods with the city's democratic spirit. The Dionysian festivals were marked by theatrical performances. Citizens watched plays that explored morality, politics, and human nature. Actors wore elaborate masks and recited poetry, while the audience laughed, wept, and debated the meanings behind the stories. Theater was both entertainment and a moral guide. As evening fell, the city shifted to quieter rhythms. Courtyards glowed with the soft light of oil lamps, and families shared meals of lentils, olives, and bread. Music filled the air as children practiced the lyre and adults exchanged stories. The city's heartbeat slowed, but the pulse of learning, worship, and civic life continued. Night walks along the Acropolis offered views of marble temples glowing in moonlight. Citizens reflected on the day's work, the lessons learned, and the virtues they sought to cultivate. Even in rest, the city was alive with thought, devotion, and the promise of tomorrow. Through workshops, sports, festivals, and evening routines, Athens maintained its spirit of excellence. Each citizen, in fulfilling daily duties, contributed to the broader tapestry of culture, civic pride, and devotion to the gods. Even ordinary moments carried significance in this vibrant city. As night deepened, Athens settled into a calm rhythm. The streets were quieter, lit only by flickering torches and oil lamps. Citizens returned home from markets, workshops, and gatherings. The city seemed to breathe gently, carrying the soft sounds of distant conversations, the clinking of pottery, and the rustle of olive leaves in the wind. Families gathered in modest homes, sharing evening meals and reflecting on the day. Irene taught her children lessons of virtue and piety, reminding them of the gods' protection and the importance of honesty, courage, and respect. Stories of heroes and wise rulers filled their imaginations as they prepared for sleep. Philosophers and scholars continued their studies late into the night, reading scrolls and debating the nature of justice, ethics, and human happiness. Even in quiet solitude, the city nurtured minds eager to understand the world and their place in it. Knowledge was a daily pursuit, as vital as bread or water. Temples glimmered under the moonlight, silent witnesses to devotion. Offerings remained at altars, small lamps flickered before statues, and prayers whispered through open windows. The sacred and the mundane coexisted seamlessly. Every act of daily life was connected to the divine in Athens. Even in sleep, the city's lessons persisted. Young Nicandros dreamed of athletic contests, musical harmony, and wise discourse. He imagined walking the streets of Athens as a grown man, participating in the agora, contributing to debates, honoring the gods, and upholding civic duties. Athens in the Golden Age of Pericles was more than buildings, politics, or monuments. It was the daily rhythm of life: work, learning, worship, family, and reflection that created a society of enduring beauty, virtue, and intellect. Every whisper of life contributed to the city's legacy. The greatness of Athens was found not only in marble temples or heroic tales but in ordinary moments. A merchant arranging goods, a child learning Homer, a family sharing bread, or a citizen debating justice. These whispers of everyday life form the heartbeat of a civilization that still resonates through history. And so, as stars blanketed the sky and the city slept, Athens rested but never ceased to inspire. Each day, each simple act, carried forward the ideals of democracy, wisdom, beauty, and devotion. The whispers of Athens lived on, eternal in the hearts and minds of its people, and in the legacy they left for generations to come.